Of course, in those days, the very notion of Kurdish was unheard of. It's literally illegal. So my introduction to Turkey was in this particular context. And that's the reason why I became a historian. I really wanted to understand this whole business of Turks and Armenians. And I went the academic route because I realized that so much of the truth, as I use that term, was hidden from us. There's the official reality, there are taboos, and there's something that we don't really have access to. And I became a historian in the late 1980s, but the 1990s, already the Armenian issue was a major item on Turkey's political agenda. Already Turkish state was not only proscribing or the Armenian issue, there was penalties inside of Turkey, but they were also sending out misinformation outside. When I was at the University of Michigan, they would invariably receive gifts of all kinds of books about how the Armenian issue was a non-issue, that how it was all completely convoluted, that Armenians would never exist in the numbers that they claimed in the Ottoman Empire, that there was never an Armenian genocide, that the Armenian genocide issue was the product of terrorism by Armenian militants, very similar to what we hear today about Kurdish issues. When you talk about Kurdish civil rights, they'll say it's the outcome of terrorism, and if you're advocating, if you're talking on Kurdish issues, then somehow you are a terrorist yourself. This is how an oppressive state works. Nevertheless, I'm a British subject. I studied in the United States, and I was one of the first people to work in Ottoman archives when they opened on the Armenian issue. At that time, since we talk reconciliation, I was prepared to question my own understanding of the Armenian issue based on what I might find in Ottoman archives. What if I found documentation or material that somehow really undermined my understanding, somehow justify what Turkish nationalists claim to be the historical record? But I said that was also part of it. Reconciliation means listening to the other side. The opposite denial means going for the historical record in a critical way and being open to any possibility. As it happened, I can tell you the punchline in archives, the Turkish archives did not support the official Turkish thesis, and that only drove my interest further, and I started validating foreign archives, the importance of American records, Armenian records, German records, to understand what happened in 1915, but also what happened after 1915 in the Ottoman Empire, and also in the Turkish Republic. My only option at that point was to address the denialist issue, because we could not enter into discussion with Turkish civil society or Turkish academia. It was illegal to talk on Armenian issues. In the early 2000s, the atmosphere began to change. I think it began to change because Turkish authorities, the Turkish state, felt comfortable. They thought they had stitched up the Armenian issue. They thought they controlled it with their own institutions, the Turkish Historical Institution, the Foreign Ministry, the Prime Minister's Office, the historical arm of the Turkish military. All these institutions that were geared to propound the Turkish nationalist thesis, the archives, the museum, it was as if they stitched up the Armenian issue, and now they felt arrogant enough to say, well, let's come and discuss it. And I saw that as an opening, because at least for the first time, they allowed us to talk on the Armenian issue. And our work at the Gomidas Institute were now split into two. One was to address the denialist state, which we now did inside of Turkey, to go to Turkish conferences on a one-to-one basis, publishing books in Turkey, because that allowed the freedom of speech, or relative freedom of speech, allowed us to speak out on the Armenian issue. This was a time when Hrant Dink was doing the same thing in Turkey, and you realize that Turkish nationalist complacency was their very, very weakness, because already we could see that Turkish civil society was open to debate, independently of the state, and specifically in Kurdish areas. Our first points of contact and support came from organizations such as the Human Rights Association in Istanbul, and the various bar associations and Kurdish organizations. So we continued now a two-track policy, on the one hand dealing with denial, but at the same time engaging Turkish civil society, because the whole purpose of raising the Armenian genocide issue and talking about resolution is, of course, peaceful resolution. It has to lead to a peaceful resolution, and as long as dialogue is possible, I believe it's possible to advance towards those aims. And over the years, we were able, even though the Turkish state was denying the Armenian genocide and everything else, we were able to publish books on the Blue Book issue, on Ahtamar, and to challenge the Turkish state. And Turkish intellectuals and Kurdish intellectuals started telling us what you are doing, even though you are coming with it in some ways at a disadvantage against the state, you're already winning the argument because you have an argument and they don't. And by about 2013, we started getting invitations, specifically from Diyarbakir and Osman Baydemir, to come and work in that area. And for me, as a diasporan Armenian, that was a real test. For the first time, we from London initiated an Armenian genocide commemoration in Diyarbakir, where we set the agenda. Do we have a voice in Turkey? Can we have a voice in Turkey? And in Diyarbakir, we were given that voice. Baydemir and local Kurdish administration never asked us, what are we going to say? They said, you are free to say what you have to say. We are here to listen and to talk. When we set that the date for that event, Tahir Elchi, who was murdered last year, the head of the Istanbul Diyarbakir Bar Association, said, why don't we have a conference? And already we could see the possibilities of reconciliation, the possibilities of dialogue. No Kurdish official or peasant, for that matter, denied the Armenian genocide. And already we realized that Turkey has already been going through a major transformation, and the opportunities of dialogue and resolution were already there. And we had the most amazing experience in Diyarbakir, where we could express ourselves, and we could meet face-to-face, and genuine reconciliation, genuine regret. In fact, our Kurdish hosts were apologizing on behalf of all Kurds who killed Armenians, as if they all were murderers. But it's the sentiment behind that feeling that was eye-opener and the beginning of reconciliation. And then I realized that already, independently of us, in Diyarbakir, they had already not only renovated a church, but they had compensated the church for lost properties. And the way they compensated was not by throwing out Kurdish peasants or Kurdish people who live in the properties owned by the Vakıf, but giving them compensation outside of the city of equal value. And you realize that there's room for reconciliation, there's room for restitution, there's room to cultivate what we thought was destroyed. And 2 years ago, at Easter time, when I was in Diyarbakir, there were 1,400 people there, 1,500 people there. Over half of them were Muslim. They were Muslim Armenians. And already you can see the transformation and positive change. This is reconciliation that was taking place. And in order to respond to my critics in the diaspora, Diyarbakir was easier, for you to go there, because I do have critics and skeptics. I said, let's do an experiment. Let's pick somewhere else. Let's pick Bitlis. I knew Bitlis is a beautiful place. It was AKP territory, state control. So I started off with Facebook. You hear people doing Facebook social media. Initial contacts, first visit there. Trade unions were already supporting us. Then we had an exhibition about Armenians 100 years ago. It was a test. It succeeded. Locals supported us. The İHADE, Human Rights Association, supported us. The Bitlis Bar Association supported us. In fact, the first place I met Hussein Olan was there. He wasn't even elected as mayor. He came to the exhibition. He was a candidate. We shook hands. We talked about Armenians. A month or so later, he was elected. And already we started our work from zero. So it's a blueprint of what is possible to do in places completely from nothing. The exhibition led to a symbolic gesture from Bitlis mayor's office. They renamed a street after William Saroyan, the American Armenian writer whose family came from Bitlis. And we came up with a whole plan of action. In 2015, we had a conference on the Armenian genocide in Bitlis. We had an exhibition on Armenians in Bitlis that was organized by the people of Bitlis. And you realize that people-to-people contact, it is possible to reconcile with the past. And terrible things happened in Bitlis in 1950, we know that. But we are dealing with that, but we are also dealing in the spirit, forward-looking spirit of reconciliation. And I will finish in 1 minute. So the mayor's coming here is part of that work. It's our way of introducing them to the outside world, supporting them, but also to giving a voice now in reverse. Because today, for all the problems that we've had in the past, the Kurdish community is still suffering from the same problems itself. The Kurds are the primary victims. of state repression. And now I think we are working together in the same spirit of democratization and people-to-people power. I believe what we have achieved in southeastern Turkey is a positive step. It's something that the rest of Turkey can follow. The Kurds are the leading democratic force in Turkey. It's something that Turks can't accept, unfortunately. There's a lot of prejudice against them. But there's a de facto change in southeastern Turkey that we don't see in the rest of Turkey. And this is part of that change. What we have achieved here as Kurds and Armenians, forward-looking, peaceful bridge building. And I hope that this example will flower with the participation of more people, such as yourself, outside of Turkey, but also within Turkey itself. And we will do whatever we can to help you in your hour of need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping the time. The next speaker on my right here is Mr. Hussein Olan, who will speak and be translated, I think. And can you please try to keep to approximately 10 minutes?
Thank you. Do we need to open the or no? No, okay.
Thank you. Ben de başta saygıyla bütün katılımcıları saygıyla selamlıyorum.
I should, sorry, perhaps have said that he is joint mayor of Bitlis city.
Ben de başta Sayın Lord'um ve bütün katılımcıları saygıyla selamlıyorum.
I'd like to welcome you, dear Lord, and all of you who are here today.
Bitlis Belediyesi Eş Başkanı Hüseyin Olan.
I am Hussein Olan, co-chair of Bitlis and Bitlis.
Böyle bir organizasyonu hazırlayan ve sunan, bizlere Oğlan'ı tanıyan bütün arkadaşlara teşekkür ediyoruz.
I'd like to thank all the friends who made this today possible and who organized and created this event.
Aslında baktığımızda Bitlis gerçekten Ermeni yapısı anlamında, yerleşimi anlamında Muş'tan sonra en fazla tarihi değerleri olan ve en büyük acıların yaşandığı bir ildir.
If you really honestly look at it, Bitlis is one of the second biggest cities after Muş, where there is a history of Armenians and there's so many painful incidents happening in Bitlis.
Biz Kürtlerin yaşamı da ve Ermenilerin yaşamı hemen hemen aynı süreçlerden geçmişiz.
Pretty much we Kurds have suffered similar situations with Armenians.
Baktığımız zaman aslında bütün sorunun 100 yıldır süre gelen tekçi, ırkçı ve faşist bir anlayışın devamıdır.
When you look at it, the whole situation is because as a result of single state, oppressive single state, and fascist and racist states policy. So just all the suffering is as a result of those policies by the Turkish state.
100 yıl önce Ermeni halkına yapılan soykırımın zaten her anlamda biz dile getiriyoruz ve Kürt halkı adına özürlerimizi dile getirdik.
We have already expressed our apologize for the part that some of the Kurdish people has taken as a part of the genocide against Armenians about a century ago.
Sürece baktığımız zaman gerçekten belki Ermeniler bir kere bu soykırıma uğramışlar ama Kürtler 100 yıldır aynı soykırımı, aynı katliamı, aynı baskıyı yaşıyorlar ve halen de yaşamaktalar.
When you look at it, the Armenians has suffered the genocide in that century, and then in the century, and since then the Kurds have been suffering the similar genocides in the last century and up until still today.
Sadece dün yaşanan bir olaya baktığımız zaman 28 belediyemize kayyum atandı ve ilk işleri de Kürtçe ve Türkçe yazılan tabelayı indirip yerine Türkçe tabelayı asmak. Bu da ne kadar farklı bir ulusun diline gösterilen tahammülsüzlüğün göstergesidir.
For example, if I just give you an example, just what happened yesterday, 2 days ago, there was 28th of the councils in the southeastern Kurdish region in Turkey have been confiscated. I don't know what's coming, but confiscated by the Turkish government. So they changed they appointed trustees in those 28,000 cities. And the first thing what they've done is they've changed the name of the councils. That was the banners in Kurdish, and they put a Turkish names on those the councils.
Aslında bütün şu anda dayattıkları, topluma dayattıkları, Kürt halkına ve Türkiye'de yaşayan bütün halkları dayattıkları tek devlet, tek bayrak, tek millet ve tek dildir.
So what they're actually enforcing onto all the different ethnicities in Turkey is the one language, one religion, one identity, and one country. So they're enforcing everyone just to be a one single unit, and then that is Turkishness.
Son 2 yıldır da yapılmak istenen tek başkanlık sistemidir. Ve şu anda yaşanan savaş, yaşanan çatışmalarda bu Kürtler tarafından kabul edilmektedir.
And what they want to do in the last 2 years is to change the system into a presidential system. And in the last 2 years, all the massacres and the oppressions, all the killings and the war that is going on is as a result of this, the change of system.
Ve yaşanan bu savaşta elbette ki en büyük zararı Kürtler görüyor. Siyasi anlamda, meclis anlamında hem Kürt parlamenterleri üzerinde hem Kürt belediyeleri üzerinde ve hem de Sayın Öcalan üzerinde büyük bir baskı mevcuttur.
And of course, Kurds are the ones who suffer most of this regime change and all the war against in Southeast. And this is on the political front to the mayors and to all the Kurdish politicians and to the people.
Burada
and Mr. Öcalan.
Burada yapmamız gereken bu tekçi ve faşistlikçi anlayışa karşı gelmektir.
So what we need to do here is to resist the mentality of a single state system or the dictatorship, and so that this is the most important thing that we have to resist against this regime change in Turkey.
O anlamda Türkiye'yi demokratikleştirmek için
in that sense, to democratize Turkey,
bütün halklar, bütün devletler Avrupa başta olmak üzere Türkiye'de yaşanan savaşın bir an önce sonlandırılması ve görüşmelerin bir an önce başlatılması için baskı yapmalılar.
So to change, we ask everyone here and all the countries, especially Europe, to put a pressure on Turkey to change the system and to open the way of dialogues for the peace process, for negotiations, and to end this war.
Kürtler hiçbir zaman savaşmayı, silahla savaşmayı seçmediler. Tamamen barışçıl talepler, müzakere yoluyla bu sorunu çözmek istediler.
Kurds has not chosen to take up weapons and they haven't chosen the war against the state, but they wanted a dialogue and a peaceful solution or resolution with the government, but that didn't happen.
Biz inanıyoruz ki Türkiye'de demokratikleşme sağlanırsa Kürt sorunuyla birlikte Ermeni sorunu da çözülür.
We believe if we could manage to democratize Turkey, the Kurdish question will be resolved in Turkey as well as the Armenian question, and then they will both be find a solution in Turkey.
Ve bu şekilde bütün gerçekliğimizle yüzleşiriz.
That's how we could face the realities in the country.
Biz o anlamda Bitlis'te tekrar bu yüzleşmeyi sağlamak için geldiğimizden bu yana birçok konuda çalışmalar yaptık. Sayın Aras Sarafyan dile getirdi.
As Mr. Aras Sarafyan already has mentioned, in Bitlis we have already start working in this sense, and we want to continue until we continue to progress more further.
Daha önce kendi kimliğini gizleyen birçok Bitlis'te yaşayan Ermeni vatandaşlarımız bu gelişmelerden kaynaklı olarak kendilerini dile getirmeye çalıştılar, ifade etmeye çalıştılar.
And as a result of the progress that with the Armenians and talking about the issue, so many people who live in Bitlis, they finally openly admitted their identities and that they are Armenians, which they have been denying for a very long time.
O anlamda bu sürecin bir an önce başlayıp demokratikleşme sürecinin bütün halkların bir arada kardeşçe ve barış içinde yaşamaları için çaba sarf etmeliyiz.
I think we have to really work harder to democratize Turkey, so where all the people who live in Turkey could identify themselves for who they are, and then to live in peace and peacefully together.
Biz şuna inanıyoruz, sistemlerin, devletlerin dayatması olmazsa halklar arasında hiçbir problem yoktur.
We believe there is no problem between the people themselves if the state system were not enforcing it onto people.
Ve bu coğrafyada yaşayan bütün kültürlerin, bütün kimliklerin bir arada yaşaması tamamen demokratikleşmeyle çözülür.
In this region, the only way that all these cultures and different people and ethnicities can live together and coexist peacefully is the only way to get this is democratizing the region and the country.
Benim söyleyeceklerim bu kadar. Sorularınız varsa alabilirim.
That's I'll leave it here. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer them later.
Well, once again, very great. Our next speaker is Dr. Ayup.
I thought that was the last speaker.
In the last
Well, has he not arrived? Sorry. I'm getting the order confused. And the next speaker is Mr. Oscar Yuri.
Sayın Lordum, sayın katılımcılar, hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum.
Dear Lord, dear people who have joined us today, I welcome you here.
Bu organizasyonda emeği geçen bütün arkadaşlara da, bütün bu derneği olan arkadaşlara hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum.
I would like to welcome everyone who made this event possible here as well.
Kürdistan coğrafyasında daha da genişletirsek, Orta Doğu coğrafyasında ciddi anlamda yıkımların olduğu yüzyıllardır hepimiz tarafından bilinmektedir.
The Kurdistan region, and if we speak more broadly of the Middle East region, we all know, especially in the last 100 years, there's been many destructions and attacks.
Özellikle Türkiye'de birçok halklar birlikte yaşarken, örneğin Rumlar göç ettirildi, Ermeniler soykırımdan geçirildi, Kürtler de asimilasyona tabi tutulmuştur.
And especially if we consider the Turkish region, many people have historically lived there together. But of course, with the coming of the Turkish Republic, the Greeks were sent out. The Armenians were subject to a genocide, and the Kurds were attempted to be assimilated.
Ermenilere yapılan, Ermeni dostlarımıza yapılan o dönemki katliamlar, Kürt komşuları birebir gözünün önünde yaşanmış ve bütün bunları en kalbi duygularıyla hissetmiştir ki şu anda o tarihten beri Kürtlere de aynı şekilde yapılmaya devam ediliyor ve bunu ne anlam ifade ettiğini çok iyi bilmektedirler.
So the Armenian genocide took place in front of the eyes of the Kurdish people who were neighbors to the Armenians. So therefore, many of the Kurdish people felt this situation, of course, this genocide very deeply. But also, unfortunately for the Kurds, this has not stopped. The genocide and massacres have carried on till date.
Yine ölümden, kaybolmaktan veyahut göç etmekten kurtulan Ermeni dostlarımız, başlarına gelen kalanlar için söylüyorum, asimilasyonu görenler bunu çok iyi biliyor ve benim eşim de bir Ermenidir. Fakat benimle evlendikten sonra bunu öğrendi. Kendi kimliğini peşine düşmesini bir şekilde fark etti ve o kadar ağır bir süreçten geçmişler ki bunu söylemek ne kadar ürkütücüdür. Bunu zamanla öğrenmiş oluyoruz.
So the Armenians who were somehow saved from death, being lost or migrating, experienced and saw the assimilation firsthand. And he gives an example that his wife is Armenian, but she found out after they were married, and says how scary it has been and it is to be able to face your history and to find out that you are something a lot later in your life.
Devletin tekçilik politikası bütün halklar üzerinde uygulanmıştır. Şu anda 20 milyonun üzerinde sadece Türkiye'de Kürtler yaşamaktadır ve bu Kürtleri asimile etmek için yeri gelince mahallelerini, köylerini, dağlarını, taşlarını gözünü karartarak bombalamaktadır ve sokak ortasında günlerce cenazemizi alıp saklayamamaktayız. Hatta sokağa çıkma yasaklarından ve yine keskin nişancıların korkusundan dolayı 10 gün boyunca sokakta kalan Taybet Ana'nın cenazesi köpekler tarafından parçalandı. 10 gün boyunca 7-8 yaşında yine ölen bebeğimiz derin dondurucuda saklandı.
So, as a result of the central single state system of Turkey, which has been imposed on everyone, 20 million Kurds that live in Turkey, which evidently are hardly a minority, their roads, their villages, and their mountains have been attacked countless and constantly and consistently. As many people know, the recent curfews and heightened attacks in the Kurdish regions, dead bodies were left on streets without being able to be collected and therefore buried because of the fear of snipers that might kill you at any second. And he gives an example of Mother Taybet, an old woman who her dead body was left on streets and they weren't able to collect it. So therefore, after a while, dogs ate her dead body, and little kids of 7-8 years old, who their dead bodies had to be kept in freezers to somehow try to protect it so they can be buried when they can be.
Bu yakılıp yıkılan yerlerimize tıpkı Ermenilere yapıldığı şekilde benzer bir politika uygulanarak farklı yerlerden insanlar getirilip oralara yerleştirilmek isteniyor ve coğrafyamızın demografik yapısını bozmak istiyorlar.
So our areas which have been burnt and destroyed, which was a similar policy that was applied and used on Armenians, is to change the demographics of the region so they can cause these people to migrate to replace them with other people that they would prefer or that they perhaps could control.
Yine bizim bütün belediyelerimizin 1/3 kadar olan kısmına 2 gün önce demokrasi nöbetleri tutan 15 Temmuz'da demokrasi diye halkı sokağa çağıran bir cumhurbaşkanının zor durumda kaldığında demokrasiye sarılırken biz seçilmişlere karşı sivil bir darbe yapılarak halkın iradesi ipotek altına alınmaya çalışmaktadır.
So just the other day, a third of our municipalities were attacked and AKP trustees were appointed by people who on the 15th of July were so-called protecting democracy by staying up all night. The person who holds on to democracy when it benefits him completely disregarded the will of the Kurdish people and appointed trustees instead of these elected people.
Muhalif olan bütün Kürt ve Kürt dostlarını, eğitim sendikalarını, 12 bin tane öğretmenimiz, Kürt öğretmen, ki benim de daha önce ben de bir öğretmenim, eğer bugün burada belediye eş başkanı olmasaydım muhtemelen şu anda işsiz olarak gezecektim. 12 bin tane Kürt öğretmeni şu anda görevinden alındı ve çocuklar şu anda pazartesi günü eğitim başlıyor. Fakat hepsi öğretmensiz. Özellikle